Here are 10 amazing beginner tips for squad busters. I've absolutely been loving this game. I didn't even really have it on my radar. I make most of my content for other games, but I've just been enjoying it so much that I wanted to put a little video out. Maybe I'll make more if you like them here on the channel, but here you go. If you're just starting out, this should help you a ton. Tip number 1, you can hold your boost button not only to move, but to attack. This is not something I recognized at first, and then I started to see it and I was like, oh, this is actually huge. And this is a reason why you kind of don't want to just run around the map boosting all the time. There are moments where you actually want to hold your boost for a second so that you can either engage, disengage, or take a big fight. We'll talk more about fights later, but this is just a nice little tip. You really want to manage your boost gauge. Don't just tap it every second it's up so you can get little boosts around the map. Try to use it a little more intelligently. Tip number 2 is about fusions. Fusions are one of the most important things in the game. It's really important to not only make sure you get a good mix of units, which we can talk about, but also to make sure that you upgrade your units by fusing them. This does two things. It makes your units harder to get knocked out, which I think is extremely important. When one of your units goes down, they drop a ton of gems. It's just a mess. There's like a scary sound that some players call a pop, and things just start to go bad very quickly. It gives a unit higher health. Now, it doesn't give it the full DPS of having 3 of those units, but it gives it higher health, about the DPS of 2 of those units, and then at the same time it frees you up to get more units onto your squad. The more units you have, the more the chests cost. However, if you start fusing your units by getting 3 units, the chests start to cost less because you have less units in your squad. Extremely important. Don't sit on 2 chickens and 2 goblins and 2 barbarians. Like, pick one of them at least. Fuse them up. If you can, fuse all of the units you have so that you have stronger units running around and more room on your squad. Tip number 3 is the practice area, or the training area, I think they call it in this game. When you click on your units, you can learn a lot about them, which I'll talk about here in a sec. But more importantly, you can head into the practice area and actually just get a good feel of what this unit plays like, what a squad would play like with it. You can re-roll all of your chests in that area so you can get a good squad and really just get a good hang of what this squad is going to be like and how this unit performs. You're going to learn so much more about it, how it attacks, how you can actually move around enemies to position it better. It's really important. So when you get a new one, head into the unit section, start reading about it, find out what it does. What does the barbarian king do? It makes your melee units better. What does your archer queen do? It makes your range units attack faster. Things like this. It's important to understand this. That way, when you start to move towards the later moments of a match, you go, oh, we have a melee heavy team. I really want barbarian king. Or we don't have a medic on this squad. I know how the medic works now. We absolutely want that. So head to the practice area. And this does tie into tip number 4, know your units. Super simple, but when you're first starting, of course, you're vibing and playing through the game and having a great time, which, by the way, I highly recommend. I think there's way too much emphasis put on things like this, a video like this, or finding the best tips to grind the ladder or something like that. You really want to make sure that you're having a good time. But when you unlock a new unit, check it out, read what it does. Honestly, you'll be a little shocked. And once you get that first upgrade, which happens pretty fast for a lot of these units, when you get 10 of them, you get that first upgrade, then you'll go, oh, this is now the next big leap that this unit will make inside of a match. I think it's important to understand what that is and how it works. Tip number 5 is about the shop. I want to talk to you about what's going on inside here because there's so many things to buy. And don't worry, if some of these deals run out, there'll be another deal coming up. There will be plenty of things to spend money on in this game. And I'm not the kind of person who tells you to spend no money on a game like this or something like that. This is a free-to-play game. There are some nice advantages that you can get by spending money inside this game. And there are definitely going to be top players who whale this game like crazy, spend a ton of money, get a ton of keys and chests and things like that, and they're able to kind of get an unfair advantage in some of their matches. However, there isn't really much that you need to stress about spending on in this game, except for one thing. As you make your way all the way through the shop, you can see tons of opportunities to spend your coins, tons of opportunities to spend real money. Again, there are some good options for spending real money, and if I like a game, I do support it with like its battle pass and stuff like that. But the big thing that you want to spend money on is this: the chest tickets. This is what you want to spend essentially all of your gold on. When you're playing games, the only way that you are able to unlock more units is to have a chest available at the end of a match. We can talk about chest streaks in a little bit because I have maybe a controversial take on chest streaks. Stay tuned for a controversial take on chest win streaks at the end of matches. But for now, I really think this is the #1 way to spend money. Like #1. There may be other good ways. I'm sure people could kind of math out some really good things. There may be a very specific time where you want to spend for the individual unit that we kind of scrolled by earlier, but this is it. This is where you want to spend your money. Refill your chests so you can get them at the end of battles. Period. Number 6 is the idea of this game being pay to win. Every game like this is going to have an aspect that is able to give you an advantage by paying. Of course it has to, because that is how this game is destined to make money. There are going to be players that spend a lot of money in this game so that they can get an advantage. One of the biggest things you can get, obviously, are these keys inside of a match. These keys will let you open chests and get some crazy units inside them. I would honestly recommend at least waiting to purchase things until you understand the game more and you understand what you're liking. If you want to get a battle pass or a starter pack or something, that totally makes sense. But I wouldn't just throw insane amounts of money towards, you know, getting keys and things like that, or getting a ton of gold. You don't need that right away. And this is going to lead to the conversation about win streaks. So you can see in this video, I'm going to show you what happens when you fall outside of the top 5. We'll talk about that here in a minute. When you fall outside of the top 5, you are going to have an option to pay to keep your win streak going. Now, I've had a couple decent win streaks in this game since I've started, and you can see me paying to keep my win streak going right here. I think this is a bit of a, I don't know the right word for it, but I think this is not as necessary as it seems. Yes, it's cool to have a crazy streak, and if you play pretty well consistently, I would say 9 times out of 10, you'll pretty easily land in the top 5 in most of your matches. However, there are some wild things that happen, and they are expecting some players, I think, to get a ton of coins through paying for in-game currency and using this to keep their streak alive. Having a streak is great. It's going to make your chest better. It's going to give you more units at the end of a match. But at first, especially while you're learning, I would recommend not paying to extend your streak. The rest of these tips, we can call them like 7, 8, 9, 10, wherever exactly we are in this. I'm going to give you some in-game match tips. The first thing I would say is focus a lot on your early game. Your early game is probably the biggest differentiator, at least when you start, between doing well and doing poorly in a match. The big things I would focus on are getting early units that can help you do well. Early game, things like Goblin, things like Greg are very, very strong. Goblin, you immediately get some coins, run to another chest, you can get another unit. If you get like Goblin, fuse it right away, you don't need to worry about any more kind of economy units early. You've already got a fused unit. The chests are really cheap. You just got a boatload of gold. This is a really strong way to start a match. You also could, of course, start a match with something just like Barbarian and look around for units to knock out, get some coins, and head over to chests. In general, you want to find the best resources you can early, which I've noticed is, especially starting this game, between getting a couple early goblins, or at least one early goblin to start, or Greg. Greg is amazing. He cuts down trees. You get gems from it. You get coins from it. It's a great way to just get an early economy going and get yourself a bunch of units, which is what you're going to want before you start running into other players or maybe some stacked units on the map. Once you have a few units and you're feeling pretty good, I would make your way towards the center of the map. And we'll talk about this here in a minute. But again, really focus on that early game. A nice thing that you can do is you can watch the replay of your match. So let's say a match didn't go well for you, but you saw an enemy there and you're thinking, wow, how did they do so well? This is honestly the best thing you can do. Head in, watch that replay, click on your matches up at the top left, find it, watch that replay and just see what they did. And this is one of the biggest things I noticed when I saw a couple players that I thought were actually doing really good in a match. I would think, what exactly happened to them? Was it luck? Did they get some really nice, chests where they just got a couple great fusions early? Or did they have a strategy that I hadn't tried to employ yet? And I've noticed a lot of great players have an economy focus when they start the game. My next tip is about the units that actually are available inside of a match. When you first click the looking for a match button on the bottom right there, it will show you all of the units that pop up. I didn't even understand what this screen was trying to tell me at first. I just thought it was trying to show me, hey, here are the units you have. Here are some that you haven't unlocked yet. There you go. You'll unlock some of these at some point. That is not what they are telling you. They are telling you this is the mix of units that you will see inside this match. So sometimes you'll look at it and you go, oh, we don't have barbarian, we don't have, chicken, we don't have goblin or something like that. You'll just notice units that aren't there, and you can kind of tailor your strategy towards that. Some games I'll see it and I'll think, oh, this is definitely a barbarian king game, because we're gonna have a lot of melee, and then by the time we get, later in the match, when we start finding those epic units, I'll be able to grab barbarian king. But before I knew that, I might have grabbed some range units and just not realized exactly what this match was going to look like. Really important to notice what's going on that screen before you load into a game. My next tip is, I think, one of the most important things you can focus on in a match, and that is after you get your early game up, it's focusing on fighting for 5. You don't want to be the first place. Well, you can, by the way. You want to be first place, but you don't need to be first, second, third. You want to be in the top 5. Sometimes you'll notice a couple of big players going at each other, taking big fights, KOing a lot of their units, gems flying everywhere, and a huge player that was crushing the match would get eliminated, where you could be in third place, you're just still continuing to farm, you're moving around the center, you're taking a fight if it comes up, knocking out a unit here or there, running away from a bad fight, and you're just generally coasting your way to a top 5 finish. First place is great, and it always feels good, especially when you wipe an entire enemy squad. But in general, you don't want to give up the ability to have a top 5 finish streak just because you wanted to get wild and face off against another really crazy looking player with a massive squad. Fight for 5. Top 5. Don't worry really about anything else. Grab some gems. They're exploding out of the chest there in the middle. Like, find your moments to fight. Don't take bad fights. And that's actually going to be my next tip. Take good fights. And oftentimes that means not really fighting your opponents. You'll know what a good fight looks like because they've got like 3 or 4 guys and you've got a whole stacked crew walking towards them and you can wipe them out. If you do that, you'll get a free, chest opening, which is really, really nice. And this can continue to increase your lead and help you snowball throughout a match. But if it's a pretty even looking squad, especially for a newer player, don't even take that fight. Move away from it. Find some of the enemies on the map, the wild minions on the map that you can fight. Fight them, get some more coins, get some more gems. Don't worry about this enemy. A lot of times players will get themselves knocked out in a match they were doing extremely well in because they just start taking bad fights. This game is not just about fighting your opponents. It really is about farming, resource management, making sure you're unlocking units, and making sure you're grabbing gems. Taking fights sometimes can be the worst thing you can do. And I'm realizing I have this list. I have more tips. Maybe I'll do another tips video at some point, but I want to end with one final tip here. And I kind of mentioned this earlier, but I really think it's important to remember. You are only going to play this game one time. You're only going to play it for the first time, one time. You're only going to be able to unlock these units for the first time and try them out for yourself for the first time. All this stuff can be sped through. You can take these moments and you can just move through it really quick and look at every single guide you can online and find your way to cheese the ladder as fast as possible because you're going to be the next squad buster, esports, legendary person. All of that is cool. I make content for a living, so I totally understand the instinct to want to play and win. But I think sometimes we push past some of the things that we really would have enjoyed because we're focused way, way, way too much on optimization, way, way, way too much on just the best, the meta, the S tier. I love all these things. I love the deep dives. I love talking about games. I love thinking about all that. But I would encourage you, take a minute and enjoy this moment where not everything is figured out and everything is sort of open in front of you. Don't stress too much about your streak. Don't stress about if you won or lost a match all the time. Take this time to really appreciate it because you will not have this moment where you didn't know anything about this ever again. I hope that was interesting, and I hope that was helpful. Let me know if you like this, and if you like to see more Squad Buster stuff. I've been really liking the game, so maybe I'll make some more content. I'll see y'all next time. We did it.